All right. Well, welcome back. I hope you had a good week, um, except for the weather in Dallas. Other than that, um, so today we're going to begin our exploration of the components of the Eightfold Path. And we start today with the first component, which is holistic view. It's sometimes called holistic understanding, which works well too. So the Buddha said that there's no single factor so responsible for suffering as wrong view. And there's no single factor so responsible for good as right view. And remember, instead of right versus wrong, which sounds like dogma, right? Like the correct view or the false view. We're looking for the view that's aligned with understanding in order to end suffering in our lives and create space for happiness. So that's our holistic view, not correct versus incorrect, but helpful. So why is our view so important that the Buddha would say that? Our views determine our orientation in the world. So what's important to you? What do you value? This will drive you toward one way of living versus another, and so toward difficulty and conflict, or toward happiness and harmony. So it's easy to get caught up in the details of the demands of daily life and forget to consider what matters to us. So here at the beginning of our path, we can stop to turn our attention toward this. And it's not that the Eightfold Path is in order where you do this first and do something else later. All eight are continuing factors in living a meaningful life. But the view is first because it's such an overarching factor toward how we live. David Brooks wrote a great opinion piece in 2015 in the New York Times titled "The Moral Bucket List" about living a good life. In it, he posits two kinds of virtues. He calls them resume virtues and eulogy virtues. So resume virtues are skills that we bring to the marketplace. And eulogy virtues are the ones that are talked about at your funeral, like were you kind, brave, honest, faithful? Did you love well? He says we all know that the eulogy virtues are more important than the resume ones. But our culture and our educational system focus on developing resume virtues, and we can spend our whole life oriented that way. And then our lives can kind of slip away from us. And we can live, as he says, with an unconscious boredom, separated from the deepest meaning of life and the highest moral joys. And he says, gradually, a humiliating gap opens between our actual self and our desired self, between us and those incandescently happy souls, he describes them, that you sometimes meet. So I think we all know lots of people who are just sort of living day to day without a conscious orientation toward what they value. And I think we know the resulting feeling that they just aren't satisfied with their lives. Something feels like it's missing. And if we're going to feel good about our appropriate response to the world, to the demands of day-to-day living, we need to remember what's important to us and to use that as a compass for our lives. So that's my theory. Again, think these things over and see what you believe. Not asking you to believe them, but to think about, if that rings true for you. So nobody can tell you what matters most to you. This is a question you need to answer for yourself. But from the perspective of Buddhism, just a little food for thought here, it's not so much what you do in the world as how you are. So, meaning, like, what sort of presence do you abide in? How do people feel around you? From this space of presence, how are you able to act in the world? The first three teachings of the Buddha that we talked about, to embrace all of life, let go of reactivity, and behold the ceasing, are designed to put us in a peaceful yet wakeful state of mind so that we can choose how to be in the world and to act from a place of choice in accordance with our deepest values. And as we talk about what's important, the inquiry into what's important needs to take other people into account. So, what's needed in the world right now should be part of this question. What if I were able to meet others with more compassion, patience, understanding, generosity? How might that help? Part of holistic view is acknowledging that we're not the center of the universe, right? Because that's not true, even though it feels that way sometimes or a lot of the time, that we're part of a whole in a community, and how we are in the world will affect the happiness and well-being of others. So that's sort of the first angle of holistic view is, or how our view affects our lives in the world, is our orientation in the world. But the next thing that our views do is create our perspective. And I'll explain that. So our views structure our perceptions and our interpretations of life, of our experiences in life. And then how we perceive the world conditions our actions, meaning affects them, makes them go one way or the other, to lead toward suffering or toward happiness. And what I'm describing here, I'm walking around circles around, is karma, which we'll talk about today and also over the coming weeks. I think karma, like the whole first really 5 of the Eightfold Path are going to involve discussion of karma. I think it's a very important topic because it's kind of the practical side of all these teachings is the karma. So we'll talk about it. And it's kind of fun because there's all these ideas about it. So first of all, let's say what karma isn't. Karma gets misunderstood as some kind of cosmic retribution for bad actions. And then who decides the good versus bad actions in that case? I guess some cosmic authority on the value of actions who then dishes out retribution. But in addition to being totally ridiculous, like who would this cosmic authority be? And then how would they decide? And then how would they decide what to punish us with? It's not going to lead to skillful living because it's totally arbitrary. So even if, it'd be different if that were true, but it's not only not true, it's not helpful, in my opinion. So instead, I'd like you to think of karma as a combination of the lens through which we view the world. That's sort of half of it. And then the resulting habitual actions that we engage in. That's the other half. When you act a certain way, you reinforce the rightness of your view. It's like telling your mind, this is what I actually believe, because not only do I believe it, I'm going to act on it in the world. And then that reinforces the view and makes it feel more solid. So that's how karma makes actions habitual. If you change the lens through which you view the world, or the metaphors of Buddhism usually talk about cleaning the lens, and that's a good way to think of it, your more clear and realistic view will lead to more skillful actions. So that's what practice is sort of for in terms of the practicality of the world, which is really a discussion of karma. So I'm going to give you an example. I go to a party and I don't know anybody there, and I meet you, and you're not particularly warm to me right off the bat. So I figure you don't like me for some reason, and you're probably a jerk. So I get all frosty and maybe I make some snide remark and whatever. And then we each go our separate ways and we feel equally snubbed and disrespected. So that's sort of maybe a pattern I have in my life that's unskillful. And then over time, I do some practice and my understanding grows. And I realize about myself that I feel vulnerable in social situations. And then when I get nervous, I overreact and I'm easily offended. So I learned this about myself. I learn about other people over time that through observing the world, I realize that sometimes people who seem aloof are actually just shy. And that part is an example from my life. This happened um, to me a long time ago. Like it's such an aha moment. Like, oh, they're not being mean. They're just shy and self-conscious. Like, oh my God, I had the whole thing wrong. So anyway, so the next time I'm at a party and I meet someone with my new view and understanding, being more realistic, I look closely at their body language. And I realize they just look awkward, like I feel awkward. And I give them a little more space and time to warm up, and we end up enjoying each other's company. So that's how my view affects my taking in of information, my perspective, and then my actions, and then the resulting way that the world feels for me and for other people. So simple example, but hopefully makes sense. This kind of train of causality is happening all the time. And this is how we interact with our world. Like it seems like the world's coming at us, but in fact, we're interacting both in our understanding and then our actions and then the results of our actions. So we're co-creating the world in that way through our minds and through our actions. When I gain some space in myself and some understanding and I try a new action in a situation, I will get a different view of the world by the different response that I get back. Every time I act in a new way and get a more positive response, I reinforce the new view over the old view. So in this way, karma is very good news. The fact that so much of how we experience the world is based on our view, as we go through this work and change our view and our understanding and our actions, the world actually gets a whole lot nicer, which is a perk of this practice I didn't expect, actually. It's really lovely. So we can think of holistic view as keeping an eye on our relationship to everything we're experiencing, whatever we're experiencing. So how am I responding in the moment to what I'm experiencing? Am I relaxed and clear? So that's one potential response. Have I shut down? Like in that example that I gave before, that was a shutdown example. Well, it was also a bit of, am I doing everything I can to push this experience away and make it stop? Meaning snubbing the person and walking away, right? So, but I shut down my emotions and push the experience away. So those are different ways that we might relate to what's happening in our experience. So with this practice, rather than simply identifying with and fixating on my experience, making it everything, what I'm feeling is right, my emotions are justified, which I'm not saying to not feel emotions, but sometimes they're off base. We can look instead to see if there's any stress or discomfort or suffering in my relationship to what's happening in the moment, or to what's not happening that I wish were happening. And this offers a window into whether I'm contributing to my own suffering and whether there might be a different view and a corresponding different action that might alleviate some of my difficulty as well as the difficulty of those around me. So let's say we look to see what's my relationship to my experience in this moment, and I see some stress. Then what might I do in a practical way? First, I would give it permission to be there, because pushing against stress will make stress stronger, right? Make me more stressed. So I'm not going to try to make it go away. It doesn't work. Obviously, if it worked to just be like, no, I'm not going to be stressed anymore, none of us would ever have to meditate, right? It doesn't work. Instead, we can allow our awareness to be spacious and clear, and we practice this on our meditation cushion with room for the stress, but also room to see what else is there and room to notice what might be happening around me or for the other person. So it's like this wider view. The stress is there, but the view is much wider. So the stress is less problematic and we can still take in information. This takes practice, but with practice, it's totally manageable, totally doable. Now, of course, this doesn't mean we're always going to know what to do in any situation at all. This does not provide the answer on how to act, but it gives us a chance to act creatively and with more information and to feel better about our actions. So when we're in the grip of reactivity, our view is distorted and our perspective gets very narrow. So, give you some examples. When we're caught in greed or craving, we're only focused on what we want. And we're not so concerned about who else might want the thing we desire or the consequences of getting the thing or the experience. We just are focused on the thing, and everything narrows down to that. Or, for example, when we're caught in hatred or irritation, the negative qualities of a person are all that we see. We forget all their positive qualities. We forget everything nice they've ever done for us. And we forget any circumstances that might explain their behavior, the kind of background understanding. When we're caught in confusion or bias, we think that certain folks or groups of folks are less important than others. And we make choices that don't make sense for the whole. So remember, greed, hatred, and confusion are the three kinds of reactivity that lead to suffering. So that's sort of an understanding of each of the three, how they distort our perspective and make our view less holistic. So in all of those three examples, we're losing the holistic view that there are 7 billion people in the world, and instead we narrow our focus down to ourselves or our in-group. And this is happening obviously all of the time, right? But to learn about it in ourselves and start to correct it in ourselves is going to change this kind of cascade of different views leading to potential different actions when they're needed, right? So we don't need to fix our healthy views. This is just talking about pointing out the places where we're not healthy and working there. Lots of our views are going to be already fine as they are. So what are some understandings we might develop as we cultivate a holistic view from a Buddhist perspective, sort of classical? So the first thing we might acknowledge, not that these are in any order, is that we all have emotional ups and downs. This means that the person you may be interacting with in any moment could have any number of things going on in their world, which we may or may not know about, and which may or may not have anything to do with us. I mean, this is common sense, but it's not always the first thing that comes to mind when we're interacting with someone. We tend to think their behavior is about us, when in fact, they could be, dealing with some sort of emotional, and probably are dealing with something, right, at any given time that has nothing to do with us. And the way they're acting toward us could be, just a reflection of the fact that they're off center in that moment, or busy, or stressed, or whatever. So this can be a reminder to ourselves that the world doesn't revolve around us, and to look to see and try to understand what's happening with other people. And it's honestly a huge relief to realize that, it's just not personal. How people treat us, I mean, it's sometimes personal, but it often is just about what they have going on inside. And knowing that is a pretty big freedom to think, wow, I'm not, as much as we've already talked about how our actions cause responses, also there are responses coming at us that really, some things are about us and many just aren't and don't need to be taken personally. And then we can offer compassion or concern to someone who's having a hard time instead of getting defensive, taking it personally, and shutting down when someone actually could maybe use help, or talk about something. Not that we need to step in and save everyone from anything, but leaving a space open for people to talk if they need to, or ask for help if they need to. And that's a very different response to someone being snippy, right? To see if they need help instead of getting snippy back. I mean, it's a whole different world, actually. It's seeing the world differently, it's behaving differently, and it's got a ripple effect. That person, yeah. Anyway, okay. So that's the first thing we might learn. A second thing we might learn from the kind of classic Buddhist list is that things change. And that sounds so trite when you say it. So I don't mean it in the superficial way. I mean it in this way that when you get it down to the core of your being, the world feels different. And it's something you can see on the meditation cushion. You're like, oh, my foot's asleep. It's making me crazy. And then 5 minutes later, it's just not anymore. It's like, oh, this thing that I thought was such a problem changed. And then that understanding expands out to everything. So this can help us, this knowledge that things change can help us to stay steady and clear through intense emotional or physical experience because we know it's not permanent. And, our minds want to make everything permanent. All the time we do this. So it's actually very freeing to say, it could turn into something else worse. I don't know, but it's not going to stay like this. This one thing is not my forever. That's just how the world works. So if we're willing to give something permission to be there, that's already there and not avoidable, our nervous system can stay relaxed, and we won't add unnecessary insult to injury. So that's another way of describing these core teachings of the Buddha. If we turn toward it and check it out, we can learn about it and try to be skillful with it. And this is also true for positive experiences. So we need to treasure those we love and the experiences we value because they're not going to last forever. This is true for your one wild and precious life, as Mary Oliver says. We don't want to waste this amazing opportunity to use this life to cultivate that which we value and enjoy. When we come to the end of our lives, it would be great to look back and feel good about what we did and who we were. So, holistic view is not special or privileged knowledge, right? You don't have to go on 12 meditation retreats and have specific experiences to understand this stuff. And that's what I love about this. All these early teachings are actually quite accessible right now. So holistic view is simply our own ongoing, growing understanding of the world around us and how we're interacting with it. And this will continue to evolve for the rest of our lives, as long as we keep practicing at being relaxed and clear, curious, and open-minded. We can rely on the orientation of our view toward our deepest values and use this orientation to continue moving toward a life of meaning and harmony and contribution to the people and the world around us. Any thoughts, comments, questions about any of that? All right, let's try a little practice. This practice is going to be a little bit different, and we have some extra time today, so we will not be, so we can do a nice length practice as well. So, making yourself comfortable for meditation as you're ready. We'll begin by dropping your mind into your body. Feeling the sensations of the body. Locating yourself in your body. It can be nice to feel the entire body at once. Just feel the entire three-dimensional field of sensations that make up the body. Let's turn our awareness toward the sensations of breathing. Allowing the breath to settle into a natural rhythm. And now I'd like you to consider, what would make you truly happy? How would you envision your own well-being? Deep and rich fulfillment. A profoundly satisfying and meaningful life. Let your imagination play. Be bold. And now I'd like you to imagine realizing such joy and well-being right now. So this is clearly impossible without help. So now consider, what would you love to receive from the world around you? Friends and loved ones, the community at large, teachers and wise ones, to realize the happiness you most deeply seek. Imagine the kindness, compassion, and service of others rising up to meet you, to aid in your pursuit of genuine happiness. See yourself gratefully receiving without needing to reach out and take. Envision all barriers dissolving, all conducive circumstances arising. Now, in order to realize such well-being, there must be inner transformation, a maturation in both mind and behavior. So, how would you love to grow as a human being? From what qualities would you love to be free? With what qualities would you love to be imbued that will nurture you and support you in the quest for genuine happiness? Envision becoming the person you would love to become, maturing and evolving day by day. So, to realize the greatest possible meaning for yourself, an individual who lives in the fabric of existence, in profound interdependence with others, what would you truly love to offer the world around you? To those near and far, short term and long term, given your unique background, gifts, and interest, such that at the end of your life, you could look back with a sense of satisfaction, confident that your life was well led and you offered your best. Imagine here and now offering your very best. Any comments or thoughts or questions about that meditation? So that's a meditation, but it's really a contemplation, sort of form of meditation. And that particular meditation comes from Alan Wallace. And if you liked it and you wanted to do it again, it is written out on my website in the very first blog post, if you ever want to do it again. It's kind of nice to me to check in with that one every once in a while, see if things have changed.
I like that one, Karen.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
One other question, Karen. If we missed a session, it's been recorded and it's on your website?
Yes. So the libraries have moved. So now it's at the bottom menu and there's a video library, and you'll click video library and then you'll choose basics of Buddhism. And the password is Dharma, DHARMA. And they've been very quick to upload because they're so short. So it'll be up the same evening.
Okay, very good. Perfect. Sorry to miss last week, so thank you.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Elizabeth, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say I enjoyed that meditation.
Good. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll leave you with your 2 quotes. This is from Anne Lamott. She says, because this business of becoming conscious is ultimately about asking yourself, how alive am I willing to be? And then a short poem from Mary Oliver. She says, so come to the pond or the river of your imagination or the harbor of your longing and put your lips to the world and live your life. Thank you. I'll see you Wednesday. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.